Story 1. Grace. I dated a girl in my senior year of high school. I'm 20 now, so it's still recent enough to feel raw. For privacy, I'll call her Grace. We met at work. Never a good place to fall in love. And from the start, there were red flags I should have listened to. She would hang around our shift for hours, watching me work, catching me staring back at her sometimes. Small things, but they added up. A few months in the relationship turned toxic. I felt suffocated. She wanted to know where I was, who I was with, and what I was doing every minute of every day. If I didn't answer a call, the missed calls piled up into the dozens, and the texts became a relentless tide that always turned into a fight. I couldn't play video games with my friends without it exploding into accusations. Eventually, we broke up, but she refused to accept it. She'd wait outside my workplace, follow me to my car, block me from getting in, and try to reason with me. I got tired of it. One night, she cornered me in her car and wanted to talk. She was trying to use threats of petty lawsuits to force me into a conversation. When her father called on speaker, she used that as leverage. "If you don't sit here and talk to me, I'll have him sue you now." I said, "Fuck this," and tried to leave. The door was locked. When I unlocked it and tried to step out, she dug her nails into my arm. It was the first time she'd been physical. The look in her face wasn't pleading or hurt. It was pure malice. I pulled hard, dragged her onto the passenger seat to free myself, and got away. I drove home faster than I've ever driven. That should have been the end. Instead, because she lived a few blocks away, the harassment continued. One night, while I was playing GTA and had smoked a little, I heard a car outside, and then a soft tap at my window. A woman's voice called my name. It was Grace. I panicked. My blinds were thin. She could see me. I pretended not to hear her, hoping she would leave. When she began banging, her tone shifted from pleading to angry. I made the mistake of opening the door to ask what she wanted. She sobbed and said she wanted her sweater back. At that point, I threatened to call the police. Then I saw something that froze me. To the left of her, behind a thick tree near the front yard, a hooded figure peeked out. When I looked at the tree, she realized I'd seen it. She grabbed my arm. The other person bolted from behind the tree and sprinted toward my window. I slammed the window on Grace's arm as she reached in. She screamed and pulled away. I showed them my phone dialing 911. They hurried back to the car and drove off. The officer who came took my statement and said there wasn't much to do without evidence. They dispatched nothing beyond that. As far as I know, no legal action was ever taken. Grace had reportedly involved people before, friends who'd beaten or robbed others, so I didn't doubt they might have been planning something worse. I was lucky the person behind the tree peeked and didn't rush the window. Luck and the split-second decision to call the police saved me that night. Story 2. Amy. My name is Amy. I haven't slept much since last Tuesday, not because I can't, but because I'm terrified to close my eyes. 3 weeks ago, I broke up with my boyfriend Tommy. Our relationship had started sweet and attentive, but slowly turned possessive. He showed up unannounced at my job. He texted constantly, and eventually he suggested I put a physical tracker on my phone, actual hardware, so he could always know where I was. That was the last straw. I ended it. I blocked his number and tried to move on. The gym, cooking, normal life. A week after the breakup, I started getting weird messages from anonymous numbers, short lines, single sentences that seemed like preyed upon details rather than spam. I blocked them. I didn't tell my friends. It felt private in a way that made it worse. One night, I woke to a noise in the foyer downstairs. I told myself it was a radiator. Another night, I thought I heard my apartment door open. I brushed it off and texted my family a vague message. I keep hearing noises every night. I'm getting scared. They were asleep. I went back to bed. A weekend later, I returned from visiting my sister, and the apartment felt off. Doors that I always left closed were open. The hallway closet was cracked, something I never, ever left ajar. I went to check and found nothing unusual inside. Coats and shoes. That night, I wedged a chair under my bedroom door, put a knife under my pillow, and left the lamp on. I dozed. At some point, I woke to the light being off. The chair I had placed under the door was gone, and the door was wide open. At the foot of my bed was a black mass. My heart dropped. It was the top half of a person's head. 2 hands began caressing my feet. I screamed and immediately recognized Tommy's voice, telling me to calm down. He climbed on top of me, muffled my screams with his hand, and said he wasn't there to hurt me, only to talk. He explained he had a copy of my key. He'd made one while we were together, in case of emergency, and used it to let himself into my place. He sat there for maybe half an hour, forcing me into silence until I agreed to talk to him. When he left, I called the police. I filed a report and later used it to obtain a restraining order. The detective traced the anonymous numbers to an app on his phone. The whole thing was a violation that stripped me of my sleep and my sense of safety. I moved in with my parents until I could get away and find a new apartment. My advice is blunt and simple. If you see the first signs of controlling or psychotic behavior, get away as fast as you can. I had to live with the trauma of waking to him in my room, and I came within a breath of using the knife I had there. That memory is a scar I carry. Story 3. Marissa. I dated Marissa for a year and a half. At first, she was intense in a way that felt intoxicating, passionate, charismatic, always brilliant company. She left sticky notes with poems on my mirror, texted good night every night, and wanted everything immediate and perfect. That intensity slowly curdled into something darker. If I took 5 minutes too long to reply, she'd send a flood of messages that moved from concern to anger to apologies. She learned to weaponize silence. She would sit in my apartment for hours, staring at a wall until I told her everything was fine. She started showing up unannounced, at my office bringing coffee, parked outside until I came down. I told her it wasn't okay. She'd cry, and sometimes I believed her childhood trauma explanations. I made excuses, told myself I could help, and the more I gave, the more she wanted. When I finally ended it, she didn't yell. She watched me with a hard, quiet stare and said, "You think it's over for you, but it's not over for me." I blocked her and changed my number. I moved. I went dark. New job, new city, no forwarding addresses, a P.O. box under a fake name. I thought I had outmaneuvered her. Then the letters started. No stamps, no return addresses, just my name in handwriting I recognized. The first was nostalgic. "I miss waking up to you. I still sleep on the side of the bed where you used to lay." The second grew stranger. "You always check the door 3 times before you go to bed. You probably don't even notice it, but I do." The third crossed into the personal. It described an item of clothing I had worn that day. My blue hoodie with the hole in the sleeve from a grocery trip in the pouring rain. A trip where I had not seen anyone I knew. Whoever was leaving these notes had been watching me. I fled. I moved across the country to Denver, job lined up, cash paid for rentals, everything done under a cloud of secrecy. I kept a shuffled life, no social profiles, burner phone, a webcam taped over unless I had company calls. For a while it worked. Months passed with no notes, no sightings. I dated casually. I laughed again. Then one snowy morning, I opened my P.O. box and found a Polaroid of me walking near my apartment, taken from behind my shoulders, slouching, a coffee in my hand. On the back, in red ink, "Your shoulders slouch when you're tired. I moved again, faster and farther. I found a remote cabin in the mountains, paid cash, signed a month-to-month lease under a false name, and lived off-grid for almost a year. I got a big, loud German Shepherd for company, deleted almost everything online, and cut my life down to the bones. For 1 month, I barely left the cabin. Then, on a winter morning, my dog went ballistic. Footprints crunched in the snow outside. Shoe marks that tracked from window to window. No notes were left. No one was caught. I packed and drove back home that day, defeated by the certainty that she had found me again, even if I could not prove it was her. Now I live with 3 military roommates, a house nobody is likely to mess with, trucks, veteran plates, flags. It's safer, but the damage remains. Marissa was a stalker, unstable and dangerous. The police told me again and again that without clear threats or property damage, they have little to act on. They asked for physical evidence. They told me to document everything. I did. The notes, the Polaroid, the footprints, all of it was handed over. Still, I had to become obsessed with safety to feel even a fraction of secure. I moved until I had nowhere left to move. I changed habits until I could barely recognize myself. The letters and the photos taught me a kind of vigilance I never wanted. The lesson is bitter and simple. Love that turns obsessive is not romantic. It is a danger. If someone's attention becomes stalking, if it becomes notes on your door, pictures where you do not remember being photographed, get help, document it, and get away. The law is slow. Your instincts should not be.